Hello YouTube, back again with another old Pentax Spotmatic shutter problem. In another video and in hundreds of other videos on YouTube, talked about Spotmatics and their shutter issues as they get older. Well, there's another problem that I just recently ran across in one of my cameras that I got on eBay for 99 cents. The shutter fired normally, but the mirror would stay up. And what would happen was, you crank, well, this is my organ donor, you'd advance the film, and all this stuff in here would do whatever it's supposed to do. And this lever would be in the up position, and this little lever right here, I don't know if you can see that or not, there's a little lever right there that has this spring arm running through it. What would happen is you'd fire the shutter, the shutter curtain would go, and then this lever would stick about halfway down. It would release, this arm right here would release, but this arm would only drop about halfway down, and by playing with it I discovered that it was sticky. It would come down and you could feel the grittiness, and you could push it down by hand and it would, the mirror would come up, but it wouldn't do it by itself because that was just too stuck. So I went to my organ donor camera, and if you want to try this, you can. Just be prepared. You are always taking the chance that you're going to destroy your camera. But if you want to try what I did, start by taking off the leatherettes on both sides of the camera. I have one right here, and these came off pretty easy. They peeled off without any great difficulty. I got underneath a corner with a little razor blade and was able to peel it up relatively easily. The glue on the back is pretty gummy stuff. I tried a variety of chemicals to get it off. None of them really worked very well. But in any case, once the leatherettes are off, you have 5 screws. One here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. And this one doesn't show up easily because it's smaller than the others. Okay, so you want to make very certain to take 5 screws out. So once you've taken those 5 screws out, the housing should lift off like that and reveal the guts. The first thing you need to make sure of, you see that right there, that's a washer. It's a shim washer, and I'm guessing it's used to make sure that this surface and this surface are flush. And there could be any number of these washers at each hole. I think there were 2 on each top hole in this camera and 1 on each bottom hole, but I suppose they could vary. So once you've got that open, you'll see all the stuff here. Now, this camera I've already taken apart, so you will not have to do this, but I'm going to do this to illustrate the point. If you've got this thing apart, you'll see this is that lever that was sticky. On my camera it wouldn't move. So what I did was, and here's a view of all this stuff. This is another very busy component. There's like 4 or 5 pivot points for all this stuff in here. And once you, let's see if I can make it do it. Yeah. Once it's tripped, then the mirror goes back up like that. And you can see there's a bunch of stuff going on. So with enough screwing around that I figured out that the problem was this pivot point right here. So again, it's that lever in here sticking out through the bottom. Now what I did was I took a bottle of, this is called Liberty oil. It's a synthetic watch lubricant. I got it on Amazon for, I think it was $2 and probably $4 to ship it. But in any case, I took, and this is really nice because it has a pretty fine neck on it, so you can reach into places. And I reached in there and I oiled that point, and I think I did two of the major pivot points. I just reached in there like that and just put a dot, and only a dot, of oil, because if you didn't notice, right in here is where the shutter curtain would be if it was still in this camera, and there's nothing there protecting it. So if you get oil like all over the place in there, you're gonna contaminate your shutter curtain, and that's a bad thing. So, as I said, you do that, just a dot of oil on each point. I worked, this is the actual camera here, I worked it a bunch of times, and it hung up, but after 6 or 8 times, the oil got in where it needed to be, and the camera started to work again. And with this camera, one of the things that was the problem was you could fire off the shutter, but the mirror would stick up, and if you reached in there and pushed, I don't know what this is called, this is what pushes on the aperture button on the back of the M42 lenses. If you press that thing back in, then the shutter would go into its proper position. It would drop back down. And you can see this has already had the leatherettes removed. Now when you take the front of the camera off, you're going to lose your positioning for your timer. Don't panic. You'll need to take out this screw. It's loose enough for me to get it off of there or not. Oh, yep, it is. So you get that off there. Put the cover back on the camera. I don't know if this will work for this camera or not. What it's going to do is the mechanism is going to unwind itself just a little bit past its 12 o'clock position, just enough so you can't get the timer arm on there. So it's a square shank that it goes on, so just pick a different position like that, crank it until it's in a position probably 6 o'clock, and it won't work on this camera because this camera is broke, but it'll stay, assuming it's properly assembled, it'll stay in whatever position you put it in until you push the button. So once you get it cranked around to a position, if you want to be here and you have to put it here, end up with it in here in this position, take it back off after you've moved it, and just put it into its 9 o'clock position. You press the button, it should unwind and stop at its 12 o'clock position. That sounds really confusing, but it's not. It's very simple, and I had no trouble on it with this camera, which is not broken. This camera is, so I can't really show you how properly. And then you're left with just the leatherettes. There's about a million different adhesives out there. I haven't done this yet on my camera, but I will be shortly, and I hope to do another video just on that, and actually do it in real time, so we can see together how it works.